Hello and welcome to the Hoop Troop podcast. I am Matt O'Connor, and joining me as he does on all of our shows is my cousin Luke Drobner.
What's up, guys?
And we are actually Mike O'Connorless today. My brother is he's in grad school at night, so he can't make it, but he urged us. He wanted some content while he's going through finals, so wanted us to go and record without him. Luke, we are in the heart of the in-season tournament. The knockout rounds has just begun after we got through some pretty fun group play. I guess before we get into the knockout round, because they had the first two games yesterday, that was the Pacers beat the Celtics in a pretty electric game, and then I ended up falling asleep. But the Pelicans beat the Kings in the second game. It's a little tough on the East Coast. Before we get into that, because I do want to talk about those games because they were fun. I want to talk about the group play stage and what happened last week. I thought it was hysterical the way everything broke down with the point differential and how that came in. And I see a lot of people are upset about it. They're like, you're breaking the unwritten rules of basketball. And for those of you listening who don't know how this works, it was essentially like the World Cup, where in the World Cup, you get your head-to-head and you get 3 points if you win a game. You get 1 point if you tie. But then ultimately in your group, the tiebreaker is goals for and like the point differential. So goals for minus goals against and whatever that is. NBA did the exact same thing. So you're getting that huge point differential. So this last day where everyone kind of figured out, in these scenarios, we get in if we blow out this team and so happens. You had the funniest one is the Celtics are up 30 against the Bulls.
Yeah, the Bulls, and they're hack-a-shacking Drummond.
And like you had Joe Mazzulla walk over to Billy Donovan and have to be like, "Look, I'm sorry, but
I thought it was Billy Donovan. I thought it was Billy Donovan who walked over to Mazzulla and was
he was pissed.
Yeah. I mean, I'd be mad too. The Celtics were intentionally running up the scores, and when Billy Donovan came over to say what's going on, Mazzulla obviously was like, we have to run up the scores. So.
Right. And that was the Celtics ended up winning their group outright. But the thing that was going on was that there was a Nets-Raptors game. And depending on the outcome of that game, the Celtics might not have won their group outright. And then that point differential would have mattered. And so it ended up not mattering at all, which makes it even funnier that they were just hacking Drummond. But I honestly, I thought it drew so much attention to those regular season games. I actually genuinely think that so far, barring whatever is
even the games yesterday were exciting. I think I don't remember who it was. Maybe it was the late game announcers. They said there's never been a more exciting time for basketball in November and December.
Yeah, I totally agree. I wish it started a little later, but I guess it can't, because I felt like the in-season tournament started like 2 weeks in. And it just felt way too fast, and there was so much hype around basketball. But right now is about the time every year where it kind of starts. There's a little lull until the Christmas games, and then there's so much more enthusiasm. But I feel like this is keeping everyone super engaged. I feel like it's minorly taking away from the regular season. Like, I'm not constantly checking the standings to see who's in first, who's in second. Like, generally, I have an understanding of that. But I'm so focused on, who's making the in-season tournament knockout round. And then even now, and this is probably a good segue to start talking about the first two games yesterday, having winner go home, I'll air quote go home, games at this point in the season, like the intensity, the atmosphere in the stadiums, it's so much fun to watch. It feels like you're almost getting playoff basketball. I mean, it's like discount playoff basketball, but it's incredible.
I mean, they were diving on the floor yesterday in the Celtics-Pacers game.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing. I mean, the Pacers clearly care more because obviously the Celtics, having been to the finals recently, and they have the higher aspirations. No Porzingis, it's not like they were like that was truly a winner go home for them. I think all of them would have loved to win the $500,000 that comes with it, but you could tell for the Pacers team that's young, hungry, and wants to kind of prove something, that was the best stage to do it. Everyone had all eyes on that game. They pretty much handled the Celtics in the second half. And then they ran away with it in the last minute and a half. I mean, it was tied with like 2 minutes to go. And then they just totally ran them out of the gym. It was exciting. Like, I thought like the NBA couldn't have asked for a better first game in this knockout round.
Yes. And I think everybody assumed the Celtics were going to win.
I actually, we were texting about this. You made a bracket. I texted in picks because I didn't feel
my bracket was purely based off feeling. It was
going off
nothing
vibes.
logical, straight vibes, which is
I
why
went
I
off
wanted
logic.
Kings Pacers.
Yeah. Well, it would have been funny. I mean, that would have just been a track meet. There would have been no defense if they both.
It would have been insane. The pace would have been incredible, but
well, that's the interesting thing because even I mean, obviously the Pacers are on pace. They are on track to break the record for most points per game by a team in NBA history.
I mean, they're just ripping it. If you watch their games.
Yeah, and yesterday, even with that, they still, I mean, they put up a lot of points. They put up less than their average. Like they scored 122. I think their average.
Well, teams are playing hard. Like we keep talking about playoff basketball. Yes, did the Celtics sit out their guys because of injury? 100%. But everybody who was on that floor was playing.
Right.
Everybody wanted to win that game. Even Tatum was making like hustle plays, and I think Haliburton was obviously like diving, which like you don't want to see in a.
He had a couple where he flew out of bounds, and I was like, "Ooh, yeah!" Like this isn't the play. This isn't the actual playoffs. Maybe not the time for that. But
and Tatum and Brown weren't doing that, obviously. But obviously, Tyrese Haliburton's so much younger; he's a little less aware of who he needs to be and how he needs to play. So,
also, I think it's fascinating. That was he's been in the league for 4 years. That's his first time ever playing on TNT. I think that
was his second nationally televised game ever.
I think it's insane that the NBA has had a guy like this who and I know he was on the Kings and those years were kind of lost, but last year and this year on the Pacers, like there's no reason he wasn't getting more love nationally.
How many of us believed in the Pacers last year? None of us.
I believe but I look at that more as like a young star. Think about, and I'm not equating the two, but I'm just thinking like Zion hadn't even played an NBA game yet, and they gave the Pelicans like 40 or whatever the hell national televised games. You couldn't have given them one last year.
Number one, I mean, Zion at the number one pick is so big. Same thing happened with Wemby. The Spurs suck, but they're on TV all the time.
All right, fine. But again, my point being, it didn't have to be all the time. Give him a game or two last year. Like even the NFL, which has less games, still makes a point to give every team one of these nationally televised games. Granted, the one on Thursday is going to suck, but
what is it?
Oh my god, it's Steelers Patriots. Yeah, it's going to be Bailey Zappi against
Mitch Trubisky.
Yeah, it's going to be an absolute disaster. But anyway, my point being, they could have. I mean, and now I think this is the type of thing where it starts opening people's eyes to, wow, this is a great young team. Because it's not just Haliburton; they have other young guys, and They held off on trading Miles Turner. They held off on trading Miles Turner and Buddy Hield, and they're the perfect complements to all of their young guys. So I think they're really fun, and I think I don't want to say legit. I don't think they're going to win. They might win a playoff series or something like that, just because they are very good offensively. I do think, and we were texting about it, the Celtics had their number in the first half, and that was essentially, as we kind of agreed, keep Haliburton out of the paint, and it totally throws off their rhythm. And that's 100%. Why it looked like the Celtics were going to win. They were up 10 at one point. Haliburton went off in the third quarter. They kind of lost control of it.
You just need to get a body in front of him, I think. I'm not like super sold on his ability to hit like step backs and things like that, but if you give him space from three, he's got a quick release, he's going to pull it.
His shot is just so awkward looking though, and I think that's why we're skeptical, but it goes in.
It 100% goes in, and I think when he was being drafted, the reason why he kind of fell was, one, he was coming off an injury, and two, there was a lot of questions around his jump shot for him, especially being so close to guys like Lonzo Ball being drafted and seeing him struggle in the NBA despite shooting the lights out in college.
Right.
And I think he talks about it where when he started playing basketball, he was so skinny and he was so small, he couldn't actually lift the basketball up properly to shoot it. So the way he taught himself to shoot looks awkward because at the time he wasn't strong enough to actually shoot a basketball. So interesting, but it works.
Right. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. That's why I always wonder about all these guys who like go and mess with their shot when they're in the NBA. And like, every once in a while you do need to make some tweaks, but sometimes it can be counterproductive. Like in his case, if anyone came in to try and fix that, I don't know that that's productive. Like I think you just let him do his thing.
He's very confident. And again, like thinking about the Pacers rosters, I do think they have a good roster. Obviously some missing pieces. And I think what's going to be difficult is something we see with a lot of rosters is like, they build around this elite point guard, like a Tyrese Haliburton or a Russell Westbrook or John Wall, or, and these guys are great, but they're not so much shot creators, right? I know De'Aaron Fox has done a lot to try and be an isolation player. I don't know if Haliburton's ever going to be like a 95th percentile type of guy there. And you kind of have to watch the rest of their roster fill out. I know they brought in Obi Toppin. He's not going to be one of those guys. I think Miles Turner is a great compliment. They do a lot to play at this high pace, but like you said, are they going to win a playoff series? Sitting in sixth right now, when the pace slows down.
Again, it depends on the draw. If they do fall into the 4-5 game, maybe. That's more me looking and saying like who's ahead of them. You have the Magic ahead of them. Like if they get the right matchup, maybe. Do I necessarily believe it? Not necessarily, but you never know. Look at the Hawks a few years ago that went on that big run. Granted, I look at this team more favorably than I looked at those Hawks teams, but like you never know if this could start something. It could be a foundation for the future.
I don't know. Like even then, I compare Tyrese Halliburton to like a John Wall, right? And I think 100% in the type of influence and kind of like aura to him, where he can be like this lead point guard, but like those John Wall teams didn't really do much, even with Bradley Beal and Otto
small
Porter
market
Jr. Kelly
hurts.
Oubre. Small market does hurt a little bit.
I just can't imagine many free agents are going to say, as good as he is, I want to go to Indiana. And like, I just think
but they can also draft a guy. I think they do a good job drafting. I think what's going to be challenging is like, are you going to be able to find that elite shot maker at 18, right? And they hold all their picks.
That's what I was going to say too. The thing is, realistically, when the time comes, they're going to have to look at this similarly to how the Bucks did, where the Bucks went and made not necessarily the big home run swing. They traded 3 picks for Drew Holiday, which isn't nothing. That's a lot, but it's enough where you're trading for the guy to complement with him that'll get you over the hump. So they're going to find themselves in the right spot at a good time, I'm sure.
Yeah,
they just have to be patient.
100%. I also think the Bucks were in a little bit of a different situation where they had Chris Middleton and they believed Chris Middleton could get shots off against tough defenders. I think if the Pacers were somehow able to find a way to bring in like a Brandon Ingram, that would be huge. But, you know, again, are you going to sign him in free agency? Probably not, because you're in Indiana. Are you going to trade for him? Maybe. What type of assets do you have? What do you give up? So
yeah. And I mean, I think part of it too is looking ahead and trying to say to yourself, okay, who on this roster is going to be here 4 years from now? And going down the list, I mean, I'm now just looking at the roster on Basketball Reference. Miles Turner, Buddy Hield, maybes. Probably not Buddy Hield, but maybe Turner sticks around. I don't know. They did just extend him.
27. I think Buddy Hield's realistic. Buddy Hield and TJ McConnell, I think they're the only ones where I can say confidently probably won't be here in 4 years.
That's my thought. Because then you have Benedict Mathurin, Obi Toppin, Bruce Brown. Bruce Brown, maybe not. Bruce Brown.
They're a very young team.
Bruce Brown, Aaron Nesmith, Andrew Nemhard, Jalen Smith, Isaiah Jackson, and then like it kind of falls. Jarris Walker obviously will be.
Just got drafted. Yeah.
Right. So like they're gonna have some. Like Jordan Noir is probably gone.
I think someone posted it on Twitter the other day. I think the Pacers have 4 or 5 lottery picks from the 2020 draft. Right?
Yeah, they have 8, 10, 12, and 14 now.
So they're all like realistically, they're all on the same timeline, and you don't know. Like I think they have a great roster, and I think beating the Celtics in a 1 game winner goes home, loser goes home thing was huge. In a 7-game series, are they beating Boston if Kristaps Porzingis is back? Maybe not.
No.
Yeah, and you know, I think Tatum and Brown had good games, right? They both scored 30, but they could probably do more, and it would probably be easier if Porzingis was out there. So,
well, I think that was what was noticeable is the Pacers are small. They are clearly going to have trouble because Miles Turner is the only big on their team. They run Obi minutes at the 5, which Knicks fans are like really celebrating because it's finally we're seeing what that looks like, and it's as glorious as we thought it was going to be, but also as terrible as we thought it could be. Yeah. He's doing a mix of both, and I think he needs this. Like, I'm glad he's getting this opportunity to experiment like that because he could play backup 5 minutes. I do think so, and especially against smaller teams like the Celtics, they beat him. Playing a big team, it's not going to fly. I think it's very clear that it's not going to.
I think Obi is a great fit as a backup 5, and I think he's a lot like Naz Reid, where you can play him at forward if you really need to, if you put him in the right lineups. Yeah. But I think like as a stretch 5 lob threat type thing, much better for Obi. And they are really small. They don't have a forward on that roster. They have a lot of wings. They have a lot of guards, but they really don't have a forward.
Yeah.
So, which they made the right pick, right? Jarris Walker is a forward. He's like 6'7", 6'8". So.
And that's why, I mean, they have some flyers on some guys that'll plug those holes for them. And especially as they get older and get better, if they mature, like I'm looking at them as like slightly behind the timeline of what the Thunder are doing. But realistically built similarly. Halliburton and SGA essentially fill that same role. And then you have some good defenders, a couple young power forwards or like wing type players. Obviously, they don't have the Chet in this equation, but you never know. I mean, you never know what comes down the pipe for them. So yeah,
OKC is definitely a little richer.
Well, yeah, of course, definitely. But I'm just saying, roughly, it's in that same mold. I feel good about them.
I think they're going to be very good for years to come. I think we had them really low in our preseason standings, like play-in area.
Yeah.
But seeing them up in right out playoffs at 6, it's a good feeling. And they're a good team. I think Halliburton's really emerging. So they'll get some more nationally televised games next year for sure.
Yeah.
But I also want to say, have you ever been to Bankers Life Fieldhouse?
I have not, Luke.
I don't even think it's called that anymore, but
I don't. Is it? I don't really know. Yeah, actually, I'm not sure what the title of it anymore.
Yeah, it's like a $5 ticket.
Yeah.
There's nobody there. It's like a family event. You know, people bring like their babies and stuff because they need to get out of the house.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like nothing wrong with that. Everyone likes a good some family fun at the basketball.
The arena is equally as loud as like a busy Applebee's on a Tuesday.
But that said, yesterday brought some excitement. I'm trying to think the last big Indiana Pacers game has to probably be when Paul George was on the team. So
back when they were playing those LeBron James Heat teams.
That's what I mean. Yeah. So like this is good. This is good for the NBA. It's good for the teams. Like I just think it's not to circle back on it. I mean, I think there is a kind of a disaster scenario for oof. Oh, okay, you froze for a little bit there. But I think there's a little bit of a disaster scenario for the NBA where, let's say for argument's sake, the Bucks win and you get 2 small markets. Do you think the NBA is thrilled? Oh no, Luke, you're frozen.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I can hear you. Your photo's frozen. That's fine. But if the Bucks go on to win,
yeah, whatever.
Okay, can you hear me now, Luke? Oh,
yes.
Okay, I don't know what's going on with Zoom.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now. So anyway, what I was saying is the disaster.
Said my internet's unstable.
Oof, tough. So anyway, what I was saying is I think the disaster scenario for the NBA is if you get
just keep going.
If you get the small market Bucks playing the Pacers, there's not a ton of revenue in it. That said, I'll watch on Thursday. The problem is the games start at like I think Central Time, like 4 PM Eastern. It's 5:00. Like that's a little strange. And I know they're trying not to compete with the NFL. Granted, it's the shitty Thursday night game that we already talked about. But I think that would be bad, but I still think even having a boring air quote, I know we have Giannis and some good young players, having that game being elevated like this in a big meaningful tournament makes it more exciting. If that was a normal like Thursday night game, I actually don't know how many people tune into that. So I think adding this definitely is huge. But anyway, now that we've kind of celebrated the tournament, let's talk about the other matchups. We'll go with the other one that happened last night, and then we'll get into tonight's. What do you think about Kings Pelicans?
I was really excited for a big Kings win. They came out shooting, and
they came out hot. Yeah,
they were up like 18-5 early in the game, and then Jose Alvarado and Najee Marshall, I think it is.
Well, the thing that I found very interesting about what the Pelicans did is they totally tightened up their lineup. Their rotation got very short. Guys who have been playing weren't. And it looked like a playoff type rotation. I think, again, I can't stop. I feel like I'm just like totally Adam Silver's best friend right now. But like that was awesome to see. Like it was because I think a bigger concern for us looking towards the playoffs. And when I'm thinking back to when we were saying, oh, is this team going to get in? The Pelicans just showed they can beat a playoff caliber team with the right rotation if guys are healthy. Like they could 100%. Be a threat. They could totally be a threat.
They need everybody to play. And
yeah, of course.
I think,
which is a big if. I mean, I know I'm not the only one saying that. It's a huge if.
I think they're way better than what their record shows right now. CJ McCollum obviously missed a lot of time with a lung injury.
Right.
Zion's in and out of the lineup. Brandon Ingram,
Same
I think
thing.
he's played all the games, but again, also another guy who's going to sit out tons of games. They do have a good rotation that they have a lot of guys who are really gritty, who want to come in, they want to play defense, and they can all shoot threes.
They've done a good job matching everyone up in their like
their
supporting cast. Right. They're all good shooters. I mean, you look at Jordan Hawkins, the rookie. Like there are so many guys who came in. I'm like, and I just think
anybody can step up on that roster. And I think Jordan Hawkins playing a lot of minutes because CJ McCollum was out. When he first came out there, also playing a lot of Kira Lewis Jr.
And even Dyson Daniels got yanked yesterday, barely played.
But he's so young. He's so raw.
But they were winning with him in the starting lineup. When he was playing while CJ was out, they were winning, and he looked good.
He's a very good defender.
But for them to shorten the rotation to the point that he's not in, and them still, like, I just think that team is deep. It's very good. And I'll go on record to say you have the young talent right now.
Yeah.
You have the right amount of, you have a range of picks that you could offer. Maybe you decide, hey, we're getting hot at the right time. We want to take a swing. I think they're one move away from being a legitimate title contender.
Yeah, I think the one move they'll end up having to make is trading. They'll do like a DeRozan for Kawhi swap. They'll trade Brandon Ingram for someone much better.
I mean, if you put DeRozan at the 2 and have McCollum come off the bench.
No, because Zion.
Yeah, but with Zion,
a lot of people. I'm very happy with the Pelicans. I think they have a great scheme. They isolate Zion. He's still too big. He's still too strong. He's still too fast for anybody to guard. And it creates, you have to bring a double. If you don't bring a double, it's a layup.
Right.
And as soon as you bring that double, they swing it. And depending on who you close out to, it's going to be a high percentage 3-point shot. They have a great system, but Zion's I think he's a good passer, not a great passer. He's not going to drive and make a great dish off to Jonas Valanciunas or something like that for a dime.
Yeah.
And he's still reluctant to shoot. There are many times when you could see they're not going to close out on him.
No, they're going to let him shoot threes.
But all he has to do is just step in and rip it. And that's like when you watch Jokic sometimes, right? Like they pass it out, and even if he gets closed out or not, he just shoots it. Yeah. I need Zion to do that too. So I think there's just small things. I think again, right? He just has to be out there playing. But he's not a great shooter, and neither is Brandon Ingram. Like I'm not confident in having Brandon Ingram shoot up spot up threes. I'm just not.
Yeah, I like it. I definitely prefer them both. I like mid range or close to the rim. So I totally agree with you. But that's also and so I guess adding DeRozan is probably the wrong piece to add. You need someone who is going to space the floor for them. But I like another guy who can create, because
Ingram can. He's playing shooting guard. McCollum in at point guard, and then Brandon Ingram in at shooting guard, and I think that's a good lineup. I don't think CJ McCollum is gonna isolate on anybody and shoot around and things like that. But he's like the right bring it up, get it to Zion or Brandon Ingram, and let them run a half court type thing. And he's just good chilling in the corners. So I think they have a good roster. They have 2 or 3 guys where I'm comfortable with letting them shoot if I have to. So,
and they feel like a team to me that, because they've been so turbulent the past couple of years, having this tournament now is helping establish them as an actual threat in the West right now. If they were playing well, we might say last year they were first in the West, and then everything went to hell.
They were crazy when Zion was in dunking everything, and
they are reestablishing themselves as that presence. And so, no, are they necessarily the favorites? No, but honestly, I don't think I'd want to play them in the playoffs for the same reason. I think they could win this play-in tournament for sure. They're young, hungry, they have something to prove. If you play them in the playoffs, that's not an easy matchup.
They play hard, and again, it all comes down to Zion. I know he's getting there's always a problem, right? Oh, he's not playing. There's a problem. Oh, when he is out there, he's not playing the way we want him to play or anything like that. I think it's good that he's out there, and I think they just need to play together. I really think they have a great team. They have a good coach. I think their top assistant was a head coach, Charlotte think So they have guys. They have the roster. They just need to play together.
Right.
Very much like the Kings last year.
Yeah, I actually think it's a really good comparison. I think it's just they got to gel. I think the Kings will be fine. I know they obviously lost this game, and that was one that I know you made your bracket. You had the Kings going all the way. I personally had the Pelicans, so I'm going to brag about myself. I had the Pelicans and the Pacers. I'm 2 for 2. But there's still plenty of in-season tournament basketball to go. We have 2 games tonight. It's Knicks Bucks in Milwaukee, and then Lakers Suns in LA. Let's start with Knicks Bucks, and this is now speculative. The game doesn't start for another hour and a half, but who do you think comes out on top here? And give me a why, and then I'll either counter or join in.
I just can't help but feel it's going to be the Bucks. The pace is going to come down to a halt. The Knicks are going to play defense, and I think the Bucks are going to completely embrace that. And I think the Knicks will be up all game. The Knicks will be up 6 to 12 points all game until the last 8 minutes of the game. And Damian Lillard and Giannis are just going to do their thing, and the Bucks will win by 3.
I think the Bucks win too. So I agree with you, but I think for different reasons. Oddly enough, we've been celebrating these younger teams with something to prove that are hungry.
Sure.
I don't think anyone is really taking the Bucks too seriously yet. They have not looked like the juggernaut that everyone thought they were going to be when they traded for Dame. And I think they need to try and use this tournament to kind of propel themselves there. I think Giannis is going to be locked in. Dame is he's leading the league in clutch time points and everything right now. So he's obviously going to dial in towards the end of games. He's had some clunkers, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But I think, especially in a high leverage situation like this, where it's win or go home, air quotes again, I think when push comes to shove, they will win. That said, the Knicks also fall into that have something to prove type range. They want to show we can beat the best. We are an absolute threat. We're a threat in the East. They don't want to be looked at as this tier 2 team. And so if they come out, they beat the Bucks at home, then go in and beat this high-flying Pacers team, get to the finals and beat someone else, like realistically the Suns or the Lakers probably, or the Pelicans, it kind of establishes themselves a little more. So I think this game is going to be back and forth. I don't think one team runs away with it. I do think the Bucks will ultimately win. They just have more firepower.
Yeah.
I will say they played each other already in the play-in round in the group stage. That game was incredible, but Dame took over at the tail end. I think if the Knicks, and that was when Randall was playing like garbage, so that's something to factor in. Randall he just won Player of the Week. I think the Knicks can win this one. They can't afford to come out stagnant. I think their record is like 1-7 in games where they're not leading after the first quarter. They need to come out hot in the first quarter. And then from there, you're going to have to hold yourself off and prevent Dame from taking over at the end. But
I completely expect Brunson to have a big game. It doesn't matter who's guarding him. He's going to score 25.
He's really been awesome. I think he's undeniably an all-star. It's hard because the East has a ton of good guards, but my Lord, what he's doing.
We need Randall or RJ.
Both.
To be
realistically good. Both.
If we want to be a top team, both of them need to show up every night. They both need to score 20, and they both need to be efficient. More likely, one of them will be good and one of them will not be.
Right.
So, I've been really impressed with Mitch. I think he's taking a leap.
I think he might firmly put himself in the Defensive Player of the Year conversation. I think it's probably going to be Gobert. Just as of the early going, he's been unbelievable. But and then if there was an offensive rebounding award, Mitchell Robinson, that feels like the best offensive rebounder since I can't remember the last person who I feel like who's good. Moses Malone set the record.
Our players are motivated to go out there and play hard. It's just there are nights when it doesn't connect, right? We are so violently inconsistent, and that's the problem. We don't show up for the first quarter. And then
how do you feel? There's been some talk, granted on the internet, so take it with a grain of salt, that Grimes should come off the bench and they should start DiVincenzo or Quickly.
I'm bigger on DiVincenzo in the starting lineup. I don't think Quickly should be a starter.
But do you think they should move Grimes? So let's say, all right, you're in favor of DiVincenzo over Quickly. How do you feel about even just taking Grimes out?
It's really about who's hot, right? Maybe not even, Grimes isn't starting anymore or anything like that. Maybe it's just instead of Grimes playing 25 minutes, he's playing 20 and we're leaving DiVincenzo out there on longer stints.
That's how I feel. I think because this starting lineup is the one that this time last year when Tibbs made the change and basically saved his job, it was this starting lineup. And so I actually like the cohesion. And yes, Grimes is not shooting the basketball well. I think everyone with an eye would tell you that. Mm-hmm. It's going to come around. He has a good jump shot. I'm not worried about that. the thing that stands out to me is he's still playing good defense, and they're asking him to guard some of the best players on the other teams.
He's our point of attack defender.
Right. I think by moving him out of the starting lineup, I don't think you can ask that of DiVincenzo as much. You could ask RJ. RJ's been great defensively, but I still don't love it. I'd rather have the two of them out there. So I think you leave it. But you're right. I think maybe you adjust the minutes. And I think just depending on how it's going, you can sacrifice him in the fourth quarter a bit more. So
I'm again, I don't think Grimes is a bad shooter. I think he just needs to keep shooting them.
Right.
Just shoot it. Just shoot it. I think DiVincenzo is also a good point of attack defender. If you really think about the tip system, it's an earn it, right? If you're a new guy, if you're a rookie, if you're, and you haven't put in the time and the effort to earn your position, you're not going to have those minutes, right?
Yeah.
And that's the reason why Grimes has continued to be in the starting lineup. That's why Grimes has continued to be our point of attack defender, because he's earned it. He really has. And so we're going to continue to see him do what he does. And I think DiVincenzo is so huge. I think the hardest thing is, like, when you think about our lineups, our shooting guards are pretty interchangeable. And I know there's also a lot of talk on the internet about moving RJ into that shooting guard spot.
Right.
And who are we moving to bring in that small forward? And there's a lot of talk. There's a lot of talk about Fournier and a couple picks for Bojan Bogdanovic from the Pistons, which I like.
I actually like that trade, but I don't think it's to move RJ to the 2. I think that's our backup power forward. Josh Hart has made comments about not loving the backup 4 role. So I actually think that solves a lot of our problems. It adds spacing for the second unit and 100%. Honestly the first unit. However you want to stagger things. Like, I think
it gives us really more lineups. And I also like the idea of pulling RJ first and letting him quickly run that second unit.
I agree. And I think actually adding Bogdanovic next to them, because RJ's big thing is he plays just like Randall. So having an additional floor spacer next to him, I think is so important. Huge. So I think a trade like that is smart for them. And I think that's probably, as I mentioned, trying to solidify themselves as a contender in the East. Winning this play-in tournament definitely says, hey, we're no joke. Going and making that small move that slightly increases your chances, I'm all for it. I think the Knicks need it. That said, don't think they have it tonight. Think the Bucks win.
Yeah. So, thinking about Grimes, would you move Grimes and Fournier for an all-star small forward, just a shooter?
It really depends who.
That's and I think with this, talk about DiVincenzo moving up into the starting lineup, that's a very realistic conversation the Knicks could be having internally.
And one thing that I think the Knicks need to be smart about is you're going to have to start paying everyone soon. Those contracts are really going to start hitting. And granted, most of them are favorable. The Quickly issue is a little scary. I definitely wish they had signed him before the season, but whatever. He's going to be restricted. They'll figure it out.
Internal discussion, I think, Quickly wants to see what the market price is.
And the other thing I'm reluctant to do is trade all of the picks when the time comes. Because when these contracts start hit, you kind of need some good rookie scale contracts. Look 100%. At what the Nuggets are doing. The Nuggets are now having that day reckoning where they're asking some of the younger guys to contribute more now. Yes. And so I think the Knicks need to kind of look at that mold and not necessarily go all in without, they need to go all in without losing sight of the future as well. Because you could make a sustained winner. You're in a place where you definitely have that foundation.
100%.
So
I think another thing that's huge was DeRozan saying he wants to be a Knick.
Yeah, it's clear that guys are starting to turn around and say, all right, this is a place I want to go.
It's not as crazy.
As it used to be. I think it all starts with Brunson. I think he just is such a floor raiser, and his ceiling, now that he's shooting this well from 3, I said it before, I'll say it again. He's an all-star. He's
very good.
And he might be an all-NBA type caliber player. This year's a little weird because a lot of guards are playing well. But still, I think, undeniably, the Knicks are in a good spot. So hopefully they get a win tonight. I have my doubts, but that's also just 20 years of them being bad.
I'd much rather move Grimes than Quickly. I just want to say that.
I agree. I definitely agree. All right. Let's move on to the second game of the night. Lakers-Suns. I think, and I know the Lakers ran away with the play-in round with the group stage. I just think the Suns are going to win this game. I'm not, and I know Vanderbilt's getting back, and I know the Lakers are finally starting to kind of hit their stride. They've been winning a little bit more lately. I don't know. I think the Suns team, I could see them, for the same reasons, being people aren't taking us seriously yet. We got to go win something. And as much as I know LeBron cares and he wants to get Max Christie some money, like, I don't really believe in AD, although this is a good matchup for him. I don't know. I just think the Suns are going to win this game.
Yeah, I'm questionable about both these teams. I think that's the hardest thing.
That's the problem. Is they're either really good or I'm like, do I believe in you?
It's a depth thing, right? Obviously, when you have these superstar players, LeBron, Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, Anthony Davis, and you get them all on the same teams, they're really tough to beat when they're all playing top level basketball at the same time. But, let's say, Booker has an off night or Kevin Durant has an off night. Who else is stepping up on the Suns? I know they have Eric Gordon, and he's been good. Is he going to continue to do that?
I was at the Eric Gordon Knicks game when the Suns played the Knicks, and then Devin Booker hit that three.
Ridiculous.
Yeah, but Eric Gordon went off. I mean, it's just nothing. There's nothing you can do. But Nasir Little was hitting threes, and that's not common. That's not going to happen all the time. But they have guys who will step up in small batches here or there.
You can expect their role players to hit timely threes, but in a night when it's just Devin Booker out there playing the Knicks, and you let Eric Gordon score 25 or 26, right. Is that going to happen every night where you can rely on Gordon to give you 26?
No.
Does the same thing happen? Jokic, Gordon, and Murray were all out against the Clippers, and out of nowhere, Reggie Jackson and DeAndre Jordan put up 30 each.
That might be the worst loss of the season for any team. I actually it's hard for me to think of another one that's that bad. Anyway, go on.
But that's expected, right? There are going to be these one-off games, right? Reggie Jackson, he's a bench player on the Nuggets.
Boston College legend. Leave him out of this.
He's still an NBA player.
Yeah.
Quality, practices every day, comes to work, is a professional. And so obviously all these Sun guys are like that. And the Lakers, obviously the same way. I see Cam Reddish in their starting lineup. Cam Reddish couldn't find minutes on the Knicks, couldn't find minutes on the Hawks, got traded to the Knicks, couldn't find minutes with the Knicks. Gets booted all the way out to Portland, still can't find reliable minutes in Portland, and now he's playing minutes for the Lakers. It just doesn't make sense to me, right?
No, it doesn't. And that's, I mean, I think part of that is Vanderbilt getting hurt early on, and they've had a few guys in and out of the lineup.
Don't get me wrong,
Cam Vincent too. They've had a lot of guys who just haven't been playing or playing up to their level. So
I don't think Cam Reddish is bad. I just don't think if you're gonna have to rely on Cam Reddish night in, night out, is that something you want to do?
No.
So
no, absolutely not.
Right, and so both these teams are just so hard to evaluate and understand who they are. But I think you're right. The Suns probably pull this one out.
Yeah.
Just because I feel a little better about them than I do about the.
That's how I feel. And again, I could easily feel I feel like I'm going to know in the first quarter who's going to win this game. You're just going to tell who has more pep in their step than the other team, and that's who's going to win.
I kind of get the feeling LeBron, Anthony Davis isn't going to come out ready to play, and LeBron's going to get frustrated, and the Lakers will absolutely blow one.
Or it's going to be very apparent that LeBron wants to win, and if LeBron's playing like playoff LeBron, I don't know that anyone's going to match that intensity. I don't. I think
Kevin Durant might have a smooth 35 tonight.
But I think it's the same way that we were just talking about the Pacers and the Celtics. The Celtics clearly were looking at this less they were playing hard, don't get me wrong, but they weren't. This wasn't like when they were playing last season in the series against.
It wasn't Game 7 against the Heat.
Right, that's what I mean. Even though win or go home type game, they weren't playing that hard. I think LeBron might. Again, I just think it's one of those things where for him, he needs to show Lakers are here. We're still a threat. I could see him going all out. And he's made comments about really caring about this tournament. So you never know. The Suns, I don't think, have that same urge.
Yeah.
They care. Don't get me wrong. I think they need to prove to people that we're good.
Again, both teams are so inconsistent, right? I barely even know what's going to happen. If you light a fire under Devin Booker, you don't know. Any given night, he could just decide that he wants to score 50. Same with Durant. Same with LeBron.
Yeah.
Definitely. I think this game is going to be decided, like you said, it's going to be what team comes out with a bigger pep in their step. I think it's going to be decided in the second quarter. Both teams are going to come out intense.
Yeah.
And they're going to battle it out. And the final score after one will be 28-26. And one team will just give up in the second quarter.
Yeah. And I think it's regardless, I'm going to watch it. It's going to be a fun game just because how often you get two guys who are top 10 in scoring playing each other. It's going to be fun. And I hope it matches the intensity from last night. I know these teams are both at different stages comparatively, or like the organizations are. So you never know what you're going to get. But yeah, I'm hoping it's fun. I do think Bucks Knicks will be. But all right, now that we have predicted who we think is going to be in the next round, let's go. Who do we think makes the final? So obviously in the East, we are theorizing it'll be Bucks Pacers against that's going to be in the East, and then in the West, it's going to be Pelicans against the Suns. Who do you like? Who do you think gets through to the finals in Vegas?
I think the Pelicans beat the Suns. I think the Lakers get blown out. I think the Lakers get blown out tonight. I think the Suns get blown out.
Interesting.
On Thursday.
All right. I think it's going to be Suns Bucks in the final.
I think the Bucks are going to beat the Pacers in a close one Thursday night.
Okay. And then who do you think wins it all?
And I think the Bucks beat the Pelicans in the finals.
All right. Yeah. We both have the Bucks winning then. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Again, it's all speculative, but I'm just always curious to see. You had to change yours because did you have the Kings winning it all?
I did have the Kings winning it all.
Ooh.
I expected a full out pace battle in the championship.
Yeah.
But also, I want to get back to the point you made about two small market teams competing on nights against the NFL. I think that's so huge that we talk about these small market teams. And I think the idea behind the NBA is that all teams are treated equally.
Yeah.
Like Milwaukee on an average year is a small market. But when they have a superstar like Giannis and they add a guy like Damian Lillard, they're a big market.
Yeah.
And sure. No,
it's about they market the players, they don't market the places. And I think that matters. I'm more looking at it as like fans of the individual teams. Naturally, your two biggest markets are New York, LA, but then Boston just lost. That's a huge market for them. Like you have a lot of these, the teams that have more draw, just in terms of viewership and all that. Like that's how I look at it. Obviously, I think a lot of people will watch. Just NBA fans as a whole will watch it. But I look at it more as like the casual fan. Would my dad turn into Pacers Pelicans if that's the final?
I think the highest rated NBA finals in recent history was Suns Bucks, which are technically both small markets.
Yeah, no, and like don't get me wrong, I know that, but that was also, I mean, what was that, year after the bubble?
It was 2021.
Right. Again, I don't know if that has anything to do with it. I think people getting out of COVID and wanting to do more, maybe that's you're tuning into more basketball. I don't know.
I guess what happened last year, like Nuggets, Heat, both those are technically small markets.
Yeah.
But
well, Miami's not. I wouldn't look at Miami as a small market. Denver probably, yeah.
Denver 100%.
Yeah, I mean, again, I'm not necessarily trying to slander the small markets. I'm saying just from a business perspective for the NBA, they would prefer, for like a financial reason, they would rather have these bigger markets make it. Especially in the inaugural tournament, that's what they care about more. Yeah,
sometimes for some reason, like my personal opinion is I think parity is the best thing the NBA could do.
Oh, I agree. And I think that matters for the playoffs. I think for this in-season tournament, they are a little worried right now that we're going to somehow end up with Pelicans Pacers.
Sure.
I do. I just think like that's probably of the remaining 6 teams, I think that's the least fun outcome.
Yes.
For the casual fan. For us, I think it would be entertaining because we're obviously we have a podcast about the NBA, like we care. But for people who don't, I think that's probably the most boring outcome.
Yes, I don't think the casual fan is tuning in for Pacers Pelicans.
Right, even though it's like, so that's why I think, I don't
know. But is there college football this weekend?
No.
That's huge.
Right.
What are people going to watch?
I think they timed it perfectly. Because I think Saturday is the championship. So there's nothing on.
And I also think it's better to compete against Amazon Prime NFL than it is like if they were trying to play those games on like Monday Night Football.
Right.
No chance you compete with Monday Night Football on ESPN. That's a cable channel and so many people are tuning in, but
no, I really do. I think they did a good job about it. When all's said and done, I think they're probably gonna have things that they tweak a bit. Maybe they try and improve. I don't know. I think I like the fun courts. Maybe you make them less like my eyes. Like I think that probably needs to change. You can still do a lot of the fun stuff.
Yeah, no, I like some of the courts.
But I think now you get a little more creative. Now that you have like a large sample size of feedback on it. You tweak it a bit. Maybe you change your groups. Maybe you don't want it to be East and West. Maybe now it's an opportunity for you to get randomly pooled with any of the 30 teams or something like that in your group play. So I think there are ways to kind of make this more interesting and maybe garner a little more, maybe get some more rivalries in there or something like that.
Yeah, I'd love to see what they can do next year. I think the group play should be extended a little bit. You know, you put like 6 games or something like that instead of just 3 or 4.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think they definitely have a few things they could work on. Like, I think one negative, and again, I'm looking at this from the Knicks perspective. Let's say you make this knockout stage. Your team now, if you're the Knicks and you lose tonight to the Bucks, then because of the way this worked out, you now have to play the Celtics, who just lost. So you now have 5 matchups all season with the Bucks and Celtics. It almost seems like if you were the 3-1 team, because the Knicks were the wild card, so their point differential mattered. If you had a crappy point differential and didn't get in, and then you're playing these other teams who didn't make the play-in tournament, that's more beneficial for your overall record to ultimately make the playoffs. So there's something that I think they need to tweak there to kind of fix that element of it. Unless obviously you want to look at it and say, all right, we want to beat the best, we want to play the best. I just think that's something that's like, it's like
that's what I look at it. I think it's good we get an extra matchup against the Celtics. Like that's a second round matchup we need to look forward to and we need to be prepared for.
Except now the Sixers who didn't make it, the Heat who didn't make it, the Magic who are currently in playoff position who didn't make it, all these teams who didn't make it theoretically get now an easier match. Someone's going to play the Pistons instead of playing the Celtics and the Bucks right now. That matters. That matters big time. So I think it does diminish the desire to really advance. And I know obviously the players, they want the money and whatever, so they want it. The organization, it might not be the best thing for you for your long-term finals goals. So that's why I think for these younger teams with all they want to do is just prove we're here, fine. Yeah. But yeah, for some, it's not great. Like now the Lakers and the Suns are playing again. Like it's just all these little things like that to me matter. And then like, let's say the Lakers and the Suns lose, like they're going to play the Kings who are a playoff team. Like that doesn't seem particularly beneficial to me. So
how would you suggest they change that? Like the knockout round just doesn't count to the regular season?
Well, that's kind of how I look at it. And I'm like, I don't know how you fix it. But I think there has to be some sort of way to alleviate that pain of ultimately just being like stacked up against better teams. Because like the Mavericks, for example, are in standard, or like the Nuggets I'll use. That's a better example. Sure. Nuggets missed. Nuggets are now going to get 2 easy games versus other teams and the Timberwolves missed. They're at the top of the standings, and now they're going to go play easier teams, which helps them. When you have other teams that are trying to jockey for position, playing the better teams who now made the play-in tournament. I don't know. That's just, for me personally, something that I think they need to look at and be like, ooh, not the best. Maybe we bring more teams in. Maybe it's not just 4 on each side. Maybe you do 6 and a team gets a bye or something. I don't know.
I'd love to see them fully incorporated into the regular season. Where,
and they have. I mean, they have. Don't get me wrong. Like I think it's a good start. I think they just need to make that a few tweaks. All right. So the next and last thing I think we wanted to talk about, they're going to ultimately give away, I think they're giving away an MVP, and then they're also going to create the all in season tournament team. And they're going to pick 5 players. We don't know if it's going to be the format kind of like for all NBA where it's 2 guards, 2 forwards, and a center. But for argument's sake, let's go with that. Want to make some all NBA in season tournament teams, Luke?
Do we want to do MVP first, or do we want to do the all NBA team?
All right, let's start with MVP.
And obviously, your MVP pick has to be on your team.
I mean, I think realistically, it's going to be the best player on the team that wins. So that's kind of why I think it's going to be. I think it's going to end up being Giannis. Personally,
I think it's going to be Giannis too. And I'm looking at his in-season tournament stats. Averaging 25.5, 14 rebounds. How many assists? 6 assists a game.
Yeah.
Is it 13? Oh, no. That's 13 made field goals. He's averaging 9 rebounds, 6 assists, 25.5 points. His efficiency isn't bad either. He's making almost all of his threes. He's shooting 1.5 a game. He's making a little over 1. shooting 62% from the field. Great stats, and I think they're going to win it. So,
and I think now too, of all, and like people kind of make fun of him and LeBron for being like homers and like caring in a weird way.
Yeah.
Giannis caring, I think, matters for winning the MVP. I think Rio is going to boil down my MVP race to like 4 to 5 people, just based on who's left. If the Bucks win, I think it's Giannis. Pacers win, I think it's definitely Halliburton. If it's the Pelicans, I don't know. You could convince me of anyone, so I'm actually not even going to pick someone from them. But then from the Lakers, it's probably LeBron. And then from the Suns, it's probably Devin Booker. So in my eyes, it's probably any of those 4.
Devin Booker? You don't think it would be Kevin Durant?
No, I think Booker has been on an absolute heater. And I think his playmaking ability, which is something that I think matters for them long-term, we'll probably have more conversations about the Suns as a whole, especially when Beal gets healthy. I think Booker is firmly in the actual MVP race. And I think this is just like a teaser for that. I just think he's been unbelievable, and he's kind of the most important piece of their team right now. And so I think the most important piece on the winning team would win it. So I think it would probably be Booker.
Okay.
That's, my thought. But yeah, I think we're agreed. It's probably Giannis ending up with this.
He's got to play how many games? 65?
Yeah. Well, that's for overall MVP. For this, I don't think it matters. I think he's just playing the remaining ones.
He's not even qualifying for per game stats on Basketball Reference.
Give it time. He's playing again. He missed a couple games early. He's fine.
Yeah.
He's back in play. He's going to hit the 65.
We'll see.
But yeah, so that's, I think, and actually, I think that is kind of helping me narrow down my in-season tournament team.
I've got Giannis at my center spot.
But I don't know that you can categorize him as a center.
Why?
I'm looking at it.
Why? Because Brook Lopez plays center?
I think it's how the NBA categorizes him, and the NBA looks at him as a power forward. It's the same reason why in the all NBA teams, Giannis is never up for center.
Fine, yeah.
So I think you got to look at him as a forward.
Fine, I'm putting Giannis down at one of my forward spots.
I think Giannis is a forward. So I think that's a lock for our team.
Okay.
And I'm counting out everyone who didn't advance. Because I think to make the all NBA in season tournament team, you have to have advanced. 8 teams made it. If you're not one of the 8 best teams,
the farther you go in the tournament, the easier it will be for you to advance.
I think it helps
to be in
for sure. So I think Giannis is a lock. I think Halliburton probably a lock.
I want to put Halliburton down as my first guard spot.
Yeah, I think Halliburton makes it. I think for sure. I think the only other way that changes is if the Knicks go on a run and Brunson is kind of the lead guy.
Well, Brunson can be the second guy.
Yeah, but I think that's Booker. I think Booker's going to be the next guard.
Okay.
Yeah, personally. So I think realistically narrowing it down, I think it's going to be, we've said Giannis. I've said Halliburton. I think Booker. And then it really depends on how the rest of this shakes out. But I do think it'll probably be, it's hard to say because I honestly want 2 guys from tonight's game. I think LeBron, if they keep winning, and Kevin Durant, but now I don't have a center. There's really no good centers left.
I want to do.
I guess AD would have to be the center. Let's look at it as just 5 players. Let's not do it by position.
Okay.
Let's say 5 players make. Let me see how the NBA wrote it. The NBA said, let's see. Following the in-season tournament, a panel of media members will select an in-season tournament all-tournament team consisting of the 5 most outstanding players throughout the competition. All right, so it doesn't say positions. So let's just go 5 best.
Okay.
Does that work?
Okay.
So I don't think that changes our top 3, unless you don't have Booker making it at all.
I don't want Devin Booker. I want De'Aaron Fox over Devin Booker.
Oh, no.
De'Aaron Fox is averaging 34.5, 7.5, 7.5.
They lost. If the Suns win, I think Booker definitely gets it over. If the Suns lose, then yeah, there's definitely more of a question mark.
I think De'Aaron Fox did more to help his team win than Devin Booker did during the in-season tournament.
I think that's debatable. But fine. I can live with that. All right, so our guards are up for debate. We both have Halliburton, we both have Giannis.
Yes.
And then we have I'm going to save that spot for our 5th spot since we're debating it.
Okay.
My other two that I want to just add right away are LeBron and Kevin Durant. Is that stupid?
I'm putting Brandon Ingram in there.
Over?
Again, another guy on a team that have now advanced to the semifinals. He's putting up great numbers. He's the best player on his team. Sure, you can make the question for Zion, the debate for Zion, but he's the best player on his team. He's putting up great stats. He's putting up 27, 6, and 6 on high efficiency, 51% from the field. So I'm big on him, and he can fit in either as a guard or a forward. So I'm on Brandon Ingram. My four right now: Fox, Halliburton, Ingram, Giannis, and I need one last one.
You need your last, and I think it really is whichever of those forwards between the Lakers and the Suns that win tonight. I think that probably does enough to make you all in tournament team, right? If you're one of the top 10 scorers of all time and you beat another one of them and help your team advance, and then I think obviously it exacerbates it if they make the finals of it. It's hard to say, but at this point, I think
I agree with you. Whoever wins the Lakers Suns tonight, it will be Durant or LeBron, depending on if their team wins.
Right. That's my thought. I think it does hurt. I think it hurts Durant that Booker is playing this well because LeBron is basically on his own because AD is so inconsistent and whatever. Yeah. So I think, and it's totally contingent on how they look, but I think we do have a good pool of players in it. And I think obviously that's subject to change. We mentioned Brunson. I do think if AD goes on this crazy tear and they win 3 games because of him, you can't leave him off. And I think you can make a case for Dame too if Dame does well. Like there's all these guys that.
Randall, if Randall comes out shooting and over the next 3 games he's averaging 30, 13, and 6,
player of the week last week.
How can you not make the argument for that?
So I do think it depends on what teams keep winning, for sure. But which also feels counterintuitive that you're like really just narrowing it down just based on wins, but that matters, and that's something that like I don't know. I know you're not supposed to weigh the playoffs when looking at like the actual all NBA teams, so it's a little different. Yeah. Just because like those who advance, you have more of a sample size and you can really use those performances. But yeah, I think that's part of it. I think that's why no one who got knocked out deserves to make it. Like no one who got knocked out.
No one who made the knockout stage.
Right. Everyone who didn't get out of the group play. Like I don't think they deserve it. You had guys who played great. I mean, I know you mentioned Donovan Mitchell was, he was scoring how many points per game? He had 39 points in his 2 games in the so he only played 2 games in the in-season tournament. That matters. But like Embiid played 4 games. He was averaging 34, 12, and 6. And he was averaging almost 2 steals and 2 blocks in all those games. Those are unbelievable numbers, but your team didn't advance. Pass. I just think you can't. Jokic, same thing. Great numbers. Doncic, great numbers. But you didn't move on.
There are arguments for that, right? Like it's hard to win an NBA MVP if your team didn't if your team wasn't a top 3 seed in your conference.
I also think it's interesting because it is such a small sample. You only have 4 or so games for every player.
Yeah.
And there were 11 guys who averaged 30 or more so far throughout the
how many guys are averaging 30 or more right now just through the regular season?
Let me see.
3, 4. There's only 4 right now, but there are 2 guys averaging 29.9.
Yeah, but still technically doesn't count. So right, but 11 in the 4 or so games. I mean, that's huge.
Yeah.
And actually, none of them, it looks to me, the closest to that is Halliburton, who's played 5 games. Halliburton and Ingram are 13th and 14th on the list of scoring points per game in this. And they're at 28 and 27.4, respectively. But so I think a lot can change. But yeah, I think that's probably the pool of guys that we're going to see. Subject to change. But yeah, realistically, those are the guys who might make the all-tournament team. How much that matters to them, I don't know. It's fun for me.
Yeah, I think when we were reading the rules, I think there are pay adjustments. So depending on if you make a team or you win the MVP or your team, makes it to the semifinals or something like that, I think you get paid differently.
I think quarterfinalists make less. I know ultimately if you win, it's $500,000. I think it's maybe $250 if you make the semis, and then $100 if you're in the quarters. So I think everyone now technically is getting a bonus. I think it's how much. So there is incentive to win,
as there should be.
Yeah, and just glory. I mean, I think pride is probably the other thing, and I think for the most part, the teams that are still left have some pride to play for.
Yeah, let me ask you something. De'Aaron Fox has one NBA Clutch Player of the Year. Michael Jordan has 0. So
where do you rank him?
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, no, and that's the thing. It is a little silly, but I think as this grows, and I think teams are going to take it more seriously in the future. I think now the understanding of how it all works, like the point differentials in the groups and just all of that, I think you're going to have teams in the earlier games of the group stages care more. So the Bulls, for example, got crushed in most of their games.
Sure.
But you never know. They might make it a point to say, all right, we're losing, but F this team. I don't want them getting in on point differential. Let's play them close.
Sure.
You could say, let's not lose by 30. Let's lose by 15.
Yeah, maybe. I think something you said earlier is something really important. You were talking about the strength of schedule.
Yeah.
And how it affects the organization. How can you incentivize the organization to, from the top down, say to their coaches, play this game hard, to say to their player, you already incentivize the players, hey, you're going to get extra money in your paycheck. How do you incentivize the organizations to say, let's win these games?
I have an idea.
And I think go ahead.
I have an idea. Instead of doing 4 teams from each conference, or if you shuffle it, whatever.
Sure.
So there's 8 teams that advance. I think you do 6 from each half. So from the East and from the West. 2, that would mean 1 team. How many teams get a bye? 1 team gets a bye. 2 teams get a bye. No, I'm off now. 2 teams get a bye, and then 4 teams play each other. Okay. So 2 teams get a bye. That bye, you get a guaranteed win on the season. You don't have to play one, you get a win. I think that incentivizes teams to go take the group play seriously and get in. Yeah. And then if you're in the other 4 teams of that half that get in, then you play probably another competitive team. If you win that, you play the rested team. But I just think that makes it a little more. I don't know if that's something that would sell or if teams would sign on for it. But then you're really playing for something.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I think when it comes down to it, you have to think about how do you motivate teams like the Clippers, right? Obviously, a team who's very motivated to win playoff series. How do you incentivize them to win an in-season tournament round?
Well, I mean, you could hardly incentivize them to do anything at this point. They hardly want to pass the ball.
Yeah, PJ Tucker is already talking.
I mean, that's a disaster. But we'll save that for another episode. My God, what a nightmare! Oh God. All right, so Luke, we've been on for a while, but I want to give you the chance. If you have anything else holster that you need to let go in this episode, feel free. Now's your chance. Speak now or forever hold your peace.
Have I told you about Jusuf Nurkic?
I mean, I'm aware that he exists. What do you mean by?
Did I bring up with the fact that I'm super excited about how great Jusuf Nurkic fits on the Suns?
I think we've talked about it in the past, but why? What do you have for me?
I just think it's a great fit. At first we were all Nurkic on the Suns, and with Beal and Booker.
I think, and we were talking about this. We were talking about the Pacers this way. He's the only big on the roster, and I think that's a problem for them. And so he's been great. Don't get me wrong. Too much of him is a problem. You can't ask him to do everything he's doing for a whole season and the playoffs. That is a huge ask for a guy that's continually hurt. I just end a little older, so I'm happy for him. I'm very skeptical about their team's roster construction.
The Suns desperately need their big 3 back so they can run lineups with that, right? How do you survive the Jusuf Nurkic minutes off? And you need to have
is in the game, yeah,
right. And so you need to find which stars played best with Eubanks and how you can survive those minutes, and then obviously stagger with Nurkic
and so see who plays with him the best on their own. Who is best when we're putting the other guys with Eubanks? Who's best then to man the minutes without those guys or Eubanks? So
exactly
right. So and again, so much season left. We're 25 games into the season. Yeah,
even less than that.
Yeah, so that's what I mean.
We're approaching 20 right now.
Yeah. So I'm not worried. I think they're going to be fine, but I do think deadline, they're going to have to make a tweak, maybe a buyout type big that they can get their hands on. Little things like that I think would go a long way.
Obviously, we're all in a fantasy league together. We're the bottom 2 teams.
Hey, my team's figuring it out. I'm back-to-back big wins.
I didn't get absolutely blown out this week.
Hey, that's progress.
I won 4 categories.
That's progress.
It is progress.
I won 7-3 last week, and then I beat you with a resounding 8-1 to 1. So
that's what I mean. I lose 8-1, 9-1 almost every week, but not last week.
Luke, your draft was a botch.
It's okay.
So it is okay.
But fantasy secret, I picked up Keontae George. I've been big on him.
Yeah.
So I think it could be like a CJ McCollum at the end of his career. I think the Magic are overrated. The Mavericks were playing.
They keep winning.
Mavericks were playing Luka at center.
Yeah, weird. I think I mean, also, are you? I just need to totally give myself some credit. Mavericks were doing so well at the beginning of the year. They're starting to fall off. It's almost like when they started playing it's almost like when they started playing the good teams.
Yeah, they started losing.
They're getting exposed.
They beat the teams they're supposed to beat, and that's what's important.
Also, we should talk about over the weekend against the Thunder. My God, they went on a 30-0 run.
And then
they lost the game, but holy
the Thunder are young.
30-0.
Yeah, they're a great offensive team.
Yeah,
Luka can easily create every single point for an offense. It's ridiculous. He's Jokic. It's ridiculous. Obviously, maybe not always so productive, but all right. And then my last thought, a little bit of a thought question. Think about it. You're an NBA coach. You have an elite two-way player, Giannis, Kawhi, Anthony Edwards, Jason Tatum. Would you allow them to foul out early, pick up 6 fouls, if on the entire season they average 25, 12, and 4? 25 points, 12 rebounds, 4 assists on 50, 40, 90 shooting splits for an entire season. But they fouled out early some games. Not every game, but some of them.
Yeah, definitely.
Interesting. It depends who it is, right? Because if it's Giannis, fine, whatever. You're not taking the last shot to win the game. I have Dame. But if you're Tatum or
that's
you're
what
Kawhi,
I was going to say. It depends on who it is and what the roster is. But yeah, because that's the same thing. You mentioned Kawhi. Paul George can take the shot. I'm okay with that. I can live with it. I think it matters who your second star is on your team, if at all. I
don't remember why I thought that, but I was like, it's an interesting idea. I think Anthony Edwards had 5 fouls against the Celtics.
Yeah, and I was like, why not just let him foul out? Where I think I say no, actually. I don't know that I would want that.
I think the Timberwolves saved him for overtime.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I think that's definitely a hard question, but I think generally speaking, my answer to that is yes.
It could be a huge step in coaching, letting your best player foul out.
Well, there's also the school of thought that when your player gets 5 fouls or whatever it is, let's say you have 8 minutes left in the game, he gets up to 5 fouls.
Yeah.
And you sub him out and you keep him out for 4 minutes and you bring him back in with 4 minutes to go.
Sure.
You've effectively fouled him out for 4 minutes. Yeah. Why not just let him play the next 4 minutes, see if he can keep playing the rest of it? And if he fouls out, he fouls out. So there's 2 schools of thought there. I don't necessarily know what makes more sense.
I think you've made a lot of sense. It depends on your roster, depends on the situation, depends on the player.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, okay. I'm glad you gave me a nice little question. You're making me use my brain on a Tuesday night.
I would never allow Jokic to foul out. My offense would halt. But
if Murray's there, Murray, Michael Porter Jr., someone's chucking up a shot.
Everyone's chucking up a shot. That's the problem. I think I said that the other day. Porter Jr. had 5 assists or something like that. They're like, this is a huge day in basketball history.
Oh my God. I don't think that guy's ever in his lifetime had 5 assists. Yeah.
He did it once.
Yeah, exactly. Put it in the history books. My God. Yeah, no, right. I don't know. But all right. So we've been on here for a while. We will give all of our listeners, Michael, glad we could give you some study material or something when you're on your commute. But yeah, for those of you who have made it this far, this is the Hoop Troop Podcast. Thank you for tuning in and join us next time.